Today we're talking about the real life characters and people that might have influenced our comics. So let's take a walk to the Geek Shop.
Okay, welcome to another episode of Geek Shop. I'm Chetan, and joining me again is Chris.
Hey everybody.
Hi everyone. So Chris, what are we talking about today?
Today we're going to talk about, I guess, it's sort of like character inspirations, but it's also like who would play our characters in a movie. So I think that's the question that I brought up. Like, but I think we can also take it deeper and talk about like maybe if there was because like it's been a while. Like TikTok Tom happened in like the late '80s, so maybe you had an inspiration for somebody who would play it when you originally did it, but then maybe now there might be somebody new who you might replace them with, right? So
I'm gonna go on a side note on this. I remember years and years ago reading an interview of Frank Miller when he was doing Daredevil, or talk about his Daredevil run, and he was talking about he always thought of Robert Redford as Daredevil, and when you go back and look at his comics, you go, yeah, I could see him basing that on Redford.
yeah, definitely. You could kind of see that now that you think about it. Kind of that suave, kind of cool sounding thing. That I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
And when I write, I tend to actually have people in mind, like visuals of people and everything like that. So,
I usually don't. Only one character I did, but rest of them I did not have any. I'm gonna base it on this person or that person. Only one character I did that.
Okay, so let's start with that. What's the character and who did you base them off of?
My character Iggy, when I first started drawing her in the full size book, I based her on Winona Ryder from way she looked in Aliens Resurrection.
Interesting. I see that now.
See, there you go. See,
yeah.
Okay.
I never thought of that. I'd never put that together. You don't see it instantly, but when you mention that, it's like now I see it. Now I'm going to look back on pictures of Iggy and go like, yeah, it's like a not young Winona Ryder, but sort of like middle, like middle sort.
And
I don't know. Maybe she's in her 20s or 30s.
Certain cases I still try and give her the same hairstyle and stuff, and yeah. And you have to remember, before the internet age, so when I had the movie on VHS going back again, I would pause it and do reference drawings and stuff like that.
That's interesting. That's amazing. We've just cracked this simple topic idea we had has cracked this character open. I was half expecting you to like maybe mention some sub character, some secondary character that oh yeah, I did this off. I mean, one of the things about sub characters is we often make appearances in TikTok Tom comic books all the time.
In the backgrounds or something, yeah.
Or like secondary or tertiary characters. Like I know Tom is often a comic book artist in TikTok Tom and stuff like that. So we definitely draw ourselves. And even when I worked in animation, when we did like crowd scenes or when you needed characters that were like sort of just generic characters, often you'd see guys sort of peering past their drawing table looking at you, and then you see the commercial and you're like, is that me? So it's pretty a common thing. As far as like early TikTok Tom though, did you have any sort of like, I mean obviously there's a lot of musical influence that into the creation of TikTok Tom.
There is a lot of music and pop culture influences and stuff like that, but I've never really sat down and say, okay, I'm going to base it on TikTok Tom on Eugene Levy, or something like that. I didn't sit down and think about it. One time I remember talking to a couple of friends, and they did mention this, and I go, yeah, that's interesting. Which characters would you base this on, and that. And I did do I did take a photograph of one actor, and I turned him into one of my characters, just drawing with markers on it and stuff like that. But, overall, Iggy was the only one, I would say.
I always feel like TikTok Tom, like early, is like, who's the lead singer of the Smiths? It's
Robert Smith.
Yeah, Robert Smith. I always feel like young Robert Smith, TikTok Tom has a little bit of like really young Robert Smith in him.
Oh, okay. because he was based on. I mean, they used him as Sandman.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but like just that sort of that the look of like I could see a young Robert like if you're asking my opinion, who could play TikTok Tom, particularly in the time that he was created, I would have picked Robert Smith. That would have been
Oh, okay.
my first instinct. I think he could do it,
Yeah.
and just even like because there is that musical connection with him, and because you know like they always had like T-shirts with like it was either comic book or music branding on all the T-shirts for TikTok Tom, even still today. Like there'd always be logos from like comic books and everything and music bands. So I always picture like I think the ultimate irony would be Robert Smith, young Robert Smith playing TikTok Tom wearing a Smith's shirt.
I'm gonna
Right?
do a drawing like that. I'm gonna do a drawing like that.
So that's sort of like where my brain went.
And what you said in the last little while, you know, last few years and stuff, I did think about, you know, like certain characters. If I was to, you know, when we first had that talk about it, I would say for my character Jack, I see a young Iggy Pop,
Yeah, I could
very
see that.
young Iggy Pop.
Yeah, yeah. Before he got kind of real
When he
jacked and crazy.
before he looked like a zombie.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that. Definitely. Definitely, I could
So-
see that.
Now, what about you for your character, Blue Orchid?
So Blue Orchid, I sort of Blue Orchid is inspired off of like real people that I've run into. I've had a few people, and it's funny because I had like a few people that Blue Orchid were sort of based off of that I've just known, like because living in Southeast Asia, I would meet like all kinds of people, and that would sort of fit
Yeah.
it. And then at one point, I met one person who I said to myself, she is 100% Blue Orchid. Like it's as if I drew the character to be her, and then I sort of adjusted the character even a little bit to be more like her. And
Oh, okay.
so it's somebody I met. We're friends on social media. I don't want to out her because
No,
it's a real,
that's not.
real person. But she's an athlete who does like circus stuff.
Oh, nice.
And so she does like trapeze and all kinds of stuff, and she's like amazing at all kinds of stuff like that. And she has like the hair is exactly like it. You know, she's Southeast Asian. She's got the whole thing. She's really kind of cool. Got a bit of an attitude, but like really friendly. And so it's just to me, it's like when I met her, I was like, oh my god! Like I've started to now write. Like when I think of writing Blue Orchid, I think, okay, how would she
Think
do
of
this?
her.
And the good thing about it is she knows this. I told her. I said, you know, I do this comic book, and I gave her a copy, and I was like, this is you, and I didn't even know you, so this is kind of cool. And then she's kind of cool with it. So every once in a while, I will send her messages and say like, what do you think of this? And you get
Oh,
her
that's
opinion on
good.
it. So it's kind of
See,
neat. So
for me, Blue Orchid reminds me of Lucy Liu from what's her name? Lucy Liu from Kill Bill.
yeah, I could see that for sure. Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah. She might be a bit younger. Lucy Liu is a little bit older in Kill
older.
Bill.
Yeah, or
So-
a younger version. I just remember, you know, reading your comic with her jumping around and stuff. It reminds me of Michelle Yeoh from Crouching Tiger.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably a pretty close one too. Like, there's just so much of that influence in my comics. Like, if we were to make a modern movie about Blue Orchid, I would almost want to get an actress that's an unknown.
Yes.
You know, like I try and think of any actor or actress that's like, you know, around now, and I think by the time you'd shoot it, she'd be too old, and so it'd be almost like get some kid who's an unknown who has like the real
Unknown. That's it.
Yeah, and you'd almost want somebody to play her that would be kind of awkward in front of the camera because there's a bit of. I like to think that Blue Orchid is like not comfortable with being the Blue Orchid entirely, and so there's a bit of an awkwardness to her. And so I think if you
Yeah,
had
sometimes you visualize certain characters and stuff, and you get a certain actor, and you go, no, you know what, it doesn't. And you know, we could go with mainstream movies, and you know, certain actors fit the role perfectly. Certain actors just stand out as, you know, I hate to say it, I'm going to give an example. Sean Connery stands out as Sean Connery.
Yeah.
You know, and no matter what actor, you know, whatever he's playing, he stands out. But some actors will go into that role and completely become that character.
yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think now for TikTok Tom villains. I mean, you have your latest villain is Madame 666. So is there like somebody you have in mind that could play her?
Well, that's interesting. Not really. No, I have to think about that one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
who. I. It's funny because I'm almost thinking like Catherine O'Hara or something. Like just something kind of a
Oh,
little off the
yeah.
wall, like
Awful. Yeah.
and
Quirky.
let
Yeah.
her be really evil, like a character
Yeah.
that maybe would normally be a comedian, but let them just
Yeah.
be like super evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that would be really really cool. The other one I was thinking about in TikTok Tom is who would play Jean. Who would voice Jean? Like, would it be a
See,
serious actor? Would it be
no,
funny?
see, that goes back to the. Remember that movie in the '80s? It was a Middle Ages movie with the dragons and stuff like that. And Sean Connery voiced the dragon, and it was just
Dragonheart, wasn't it?
was it Dragonheart?
Maybe.
Okay, and might be. And the dragon, when he spoke, it just had Sean Connery's voice, and
Yeah.
it stood out. It was awkward.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe you'd want to have like a voice actor that could do something kind of different, but
Now,
y-
the people who are listening to this who don't know Jean is a pigeon
yeah.
who, a private investigator pigeon who wears a fedora and smokes a cigarette. So, it's a talking pigeon. So,
Would it have like an old timey voice, like a film noir, like that
Yeah.
Dane came into my office.
That's I was thinking Philip Marlowe. Like,
very good.
Philip Marlowe or Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Or an old 20s Al Capone type of, voice,
You know who would be really interesting, and I know this would never happen. Al Pacino.
Actually, yes, yes.
Al Pacino as Jean would be the greatest thing in movies.
Al Pacino, or even someone like, I hate to say, even like someone like Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, that would work too. Like if you kind of went the complete, that would make him a little more wacky. I think Al Pacino
Wacky.
would sort of make him a little more serious, but like
Serious,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah. So it like depends on how you go with that. So, and then what about so we've done Iggy and we've had some ideas for Tom, and we've had some ideas for Jack. But what about Stinky?
Stinky, I was thinking, my thing would be Brad Pitt.
Like somebody just
like
totally
a
good looking.
No, that scruffy, hair all
Okay.
over the place type of a look. That type of, not, I don't mean good looking, but think of Brad Pitt like when he was in, what movie, like Fight Club.
Okay.
That
Kind of
type of, yeah.
dirty, scruffy. Because the only reason I would worry about Brad Pitt is he's got a lot of his acting things. He has confidence. And
Yes,
I always feel like Stinky is like has some confidence but doesn't. Like there's a certain kind of weakness to him, a little bit. Like he's a little confused about why he's standing near the box, but kind of
Yes.
knows. And so it's like
You need you're right. You need an actor that's kind of like twitchy and not sure and where yeah.
What about Ben Stiller but like with a beard?
No, no,
You don't think so?
no.
Okay.
Ben Stiller just has that freaky look.
Okay. Interesting.
Now this brings back again reading interviews with artists and creators, and I remember reading when they're doing Swamp Thing, and Alan
Yeah.
Moore and Steve Bissett when Alan Moore created John Constantine, and he based him on he goes, I think they use references Sting as his references
I could see
in
that.
the early on, and if you look at the early Swamp Things, you could tell they use photo references of Sting for Constantine.
Makes sense. I've never used photo reference specifically while I'm drawing because I just kind of designed the character, and a lot of my stuff too is like just we've talked about this in our cheating episode where you get photo references and you Google pictures, and so I've Googled like women's karate tournaments and gotten reference for Blue Orchid from stuff like that. So it tends to be like so some of them will have a bit of their influence in that just because it's.
Now, have you read or heard of any mainstream characters and stuff based on you know, famous people or actors or anything like that?
Lex Luthor, I think, is probably one of the characters that always has like a lot of sort of famous people attached to him, like like evil people, and like the sort of cunning thing. I've read a few articles about like some of the right, maybe not the look as much as the attitude of Lex Luthor has always sort of had these, you hear about people doing bad things in the media, like world leaders doing bad things and
Yes.
billionaires doing evil things. And
No, what I mean is the look of the character.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Do you know any characters that have specifically?
Well, like I said,
mean,
Daredevil
yeah.
was based on Redford,
Yeah.
Frank Miller version, and Constantine was Sting, and Sandman was Robert Smith.
Yeah.
Well, you could see the influences.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of like classic characters. Like, was Superman based on anybody?
I wonder on that. Yeah, even someone like Captain Marvel, Shazam, because he had a
Yeah.
unique, slick back hair and all that stuff. Wondering if he was based on anyone.
You know, the one that I would picture is Captain America, Charles Atlas,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
because that's about the right time.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And just that sort of, candy coated, and he would have even been in comic books because wasn't he doing like a bunch of those, build muscle?
Yeah,
you know,
the ads, the beach scene, the skinny
Yeah.
kid on the beach,
So like guys like that, I think probably influenced a lot of that. I don't know about Superman. Like when we're talking like, because it's interesting when you look at somebody like Superman, because Superman was like one of the first superheroes. So it's like, where do you get that idea from?
Yeah, where you get the reference and stuff like that. And I wonder even someone like, example I'm going to give is Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
Did he use the references for FF and stuff? I know his Prisoner comic he did. I mean, it's based on a TV show, so you could see the references there. But I
Yeah.
wonder if he used, let's say, Reed Richards or something. Because I remember one of my buddies used to joke that Reed Richards was, always looked like the professor from Gilligan's Island.
It's true. Yeah, and
Russell
you can't-
Johnson. Russell Johnson, his name, the actor.
Russell Johnson, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as like talking about where characters came from and where they were created, it's like when I can't imagine Jack Kirby or any of the characters like or any of the creators. You have to have some influence. Like one of the things that and this goes back to our conversation about cheating. It's like you can't pull things out of the air entirely.
Oh, I'm sure when I created my characters, when I was doing my comics and even the new characters I create now, they're based on something. I can't pinpoint it where, but I'd be lying if I said no, it came out of my head. I mean, even the new villain for our book, Madam 666, I went online to look at 60s actresses.
Yeah.
And looked at like Josephine Baker and a couple of her 20s, it's not 60s, 20s actresses and singers and stuff, and based see what they wear, hairstyles and things like that. So yes, so there is some influences there. I would say more influences. I know some artists and stuff will base certain characters on actors or musicians or people they know, which is great also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes it more grounded, I think.
I guess the question about like Blue Orchid, I could easily say that I live in Southeast Asia. I've been living here for like the last, and over the last 8 years, I've lived in Southeast Asia for like 6 of those years. So it's like my concept of that. But like for TikTok Tom, I mean, you don't live in the 1920s in New Orleans. Where is that where does that spark come from? Do you think, and maybe you don't know, like I think sometimes sparks come like subliminally, like you could be looking through, you could be seeing a web ad that happens to have some, for some casino that happens to have some flapper girl in it and you don't even realize it, and then you're writing a TikTok Tom story and for whatever reason.
I think on that one, I was doing, I think the influences for that character came when I was watching. Oh, when I'm bored, I'll flip through channels and watch old movies and stuff like that. And I think when I was watching one of the old 20s movies, I can't remember which movie it was, and thought, hey, it'd be interesting to do a character like that.
Yeah.
And then that, and I remember I was watching one of the Buster Keaton's skits and stuff. So then, it just came up and going, hey, it'd be fun to base a character on a 20s, 20s, way women were dressed and
Yeah.
hairstyles and everything. It'd be interesting. So yes, the references came from, again, it's like, what you watch, what you see, and what you hear.
Yeah, but there's definitely a difference between the spark that interests you and then references afterwards. Because like the spark
Oh,
that
yes.
interests me is just like for me, to be honest, like just the idea of doing a character in Southeast Asia was what interested me, and then the story kind of built off of talking to people and everything like that. So like the spark came from walking around the city and seeing people and everything like that. But the
Sometimes I find it, what you said about the spark is also, it makes you interested because, you've been working in, I'm speaking for myself, let's say, you've been working in a mindset of drawing, modern urban characters and stuff, guy who blows things up and things like that. Then all of a sudden you're thinking, hey, I should try this.
yeah.
Completely different, you know, completely different approach to it and say, let's try it, see how it works.
The nice thing about
with you
TikTok-
with the South Asian.
The nice thing about TikTok Tom though is you can add something from the 20s and it still fits into like the modern character. So you could even have like a somebody who looks like they're in the Smiths and then somebody who looks like a 1920s flapper girl and have them in the same
Yes.
comic, and it's not that weird. It's weird. It's weird, but everything else is so weird that it's okay. Whereas I think that there's like I think in Blue Orchid, if I like introduced the 1920s flapper girl, it would be like, what? Like, how does that fit in?
Yeah, in certain comics, certain settings, it doesn't work. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, you've built a universe that allows for just any kind of character, really. Like, because they can jump through a time travel loophole and end up in TikTok Tom world, and it's okay. It's totally fine. So.
Or just appear out of nowhere and make sense out of it, and that's it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm trying to think. Is there any other villains you've had? Because villains are a great thing. Like my villain, I have one. I mean, I have monsters. My monster villains are, I think, come about the same way that your idea for watching old movies.
Okay, actually, that's a good point. Your new villain you're introducing, the sketches I've seen and stuff, the old man, the
Yeah.
master, or I want before I say anything, who did you base that on or references on?
I mean, if you don't mention Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi to some
That's
degree,
my first. That was my first thinking on him.
and it's sort of
And
like,
also, it reminded me of Danny DeVito. Also, for some reason.
yeah, it's sort of like squatness and sort of, physically, I could see that for sure.
It's a Mr. Miyagi and Danny DeVito mixed into it.
Yeah, although
You know.
evil.
Evil, yes.
That's the one thing is I think the reason that like Pat Moriarty, I think is the actor's name.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
The reason he sort of came to mind when I was doing it was because I think it would be interesting. He's a good character in most of his stuff, and the villain that I like, the villain that I'm writing, like the way I'm writing him, is he's not like totally evil. Like he has a reason for doing what he's doing that's actually kind of good, but he's going about it the wrong way, which is sort of the way that I approach it. So, like, the part of it is he creates these monsters to destroy the city, and this is a preview of issue 3, which I just finished drawing today.
Oh, nice.
So, but he sort of, his character is sort of like he does what he does. It's for a noble reason, but he's going about it in a totally bad way.
So forget about the Mr. Miyagi and all that stuff. When you went to create him, did you think about him, or did you just say, did you think Karate Kid, or did you just drew him out and say, okay, this is what this character is going to be?
I think I thought of the type of character that Mr. Miyagi is. Maybe not specifically, but the type of sort of, the small, frail-looking sort of older man.
Yeah.
Like that was the stereotype that I sort of like popped into
And
place.
that's I was about to say that. As soon as you think of a frail old master, you think of Mr. Miyagi or Yoda.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. So like it's been done 1,000 times. You know, I sort of take.
And those are the only two references that we could really, pop culture references that everyone would know.
Yeah, but it's used a lot. Like if you watch like old like kung fu movies and stuff from like the '60s, they're full of like the old master.
Oh, they're full of them, yeah.
Yeah, who like kicks
Yeah.
everyone's butt. So it's like, you know, it's
Oh, I grew up watching a lot of those old movies, but the thing is, you don't, hate to say it, it's not engraved in pop culture who those characters were.
yeah, except for like Yoda and Mr. Miyagi.
I mean, the only other character I remember from any kung fu movies or stuff is that lady, with the hairnet and all that stuff from Kung Fu Hustle.
Yes.
You know,
And so
that's the only-
even that's a bit of like the influence in there. It's like, although in Kill Bill, was it David Carradine?
Oh, the old guy, yes.
So he did
Yes.
you know, he did that like Tarantino did that stereotype too, where he had sort of like
Yes.
the main villain was sort of an older man who was kind of, you know, looked a little weak but still could kick ass. So
And had the gray hair and long mustache and all that stuff.
so yeah,
You
so
know.
it's, and even, you know, yeah, so there was definitely that influence within that, you know, whether it was directly came out or anything like that. So it's that stereotype, and like the only reason I say Mr. Miyagi is because that's the first character I could think of that fits
That's
that
it,
stereotype
yes.
perfectly. But yeah, it's, and obviously George Lucas I use sort of the George Lucas school of writing stories, in that I will often take ideas from stories that work in the past and put them into my stories. You know, so it's because, you know, you look at Star Wars and it's a mashup of like old World War II films and old kung fu
that's
movies
it, yes.
and stuff like that. So I do the same thing. I'm as guilty of it, and then I just sort of put my own spin on it.
So going back to our original topic, it's I want to hear other artists and creators who are listening to this, who are using references, famous people they know for their characters. I know Peter Macchione, who draws for TikTok Tom and his own stuff. I know once in a while he'll tell me, he's based Tom on this actor, or Iggy on this actress, or Jack on this, and you know what? Maybe I'll put some links up here for his references and stuff like that. But I want to hear from other people what they use, and who they use and stuff like that.
For when I draw TikTok Tom, often in the back of my mind is Tim Burton puppets. I tend to go. Lately I've been drawing Tom to almost make him look like a marionette, like he has strings attached to him and that are moving him around. So I've been giving him like exaggerated arms and like a big heavy head that maybe shouldn't fit on his body. So I almost think of him as a puppet.
Oh, that's a interesting thinking.
So like Nightmare
Now,
Before
here's
Christmas.
Now, question for you. Now, this is not basing it on actors or famous people, but he's basing it on the people who played him. But Alex Ross,
Yeah.
like the Superman character here, he would base it on either George Reeves or Christopher Reeve.
Yeah. And that's
But that's a likeness. But
Yep.
I wonder if he's created characters based on. I'm trying to think if he did. Oh, I remember that one. But then again, he Mark Waid, and they based in Kingdom Come. They based one of the characters on his dad.
Yeah, I think he does a lot of stuff from his friends. Like I've seen pictures of his friends dressed up, and then you see the comic,
Yes,
and it's
that's
like
it.
it just looks like his friends. So I do that a lot
Yeah.
too, like background characters and stuff like that. Like we were talking about at
But-
the beginning of this. So
But does that? But I don't. That doesn't go on what we talked about, where you base your character on, or use influences as saying, I'm gonna base Chris Stewart on my next new villain.
I think I do. I mean, in story writing, I've done that, but I've also I think there is a bit of that. Like I think it's fair enough to say that your friends can fall into that category. Like I said, you have TikTok Tom. You have Tom. Isn't he the artist on Walrus Boy?
Oh yes, he is. Yes.
So that's
But again, that's that's using the artist on that. like we said, like when like I gave the example of Frank Miller saying he based Robert Redford on his Daredevil, or Daredevil on Robert Redford, and which as a comic fan and artist, it's funny because you go back and you look and go, oh yeah, okay, I could see the references and stuff, or I could see the influences,
Yeah.
But you know what? This is a topic where we need more people talking about it.
Yeah.
And saying, you know what? Other creators coming in and saying, hey, I did this, I did that, based it on this person, that person,
Yeah. And also, is it a reference after you developed the character, or what gave you that spark? Because sometimes the spark is different than who the character turns into at the same time.
That's it. Yes, because like you said, you could have that spark, then later on say, hey, I want to change this and base it on this person or that person. And all of our characters take a journey of changes and stuff like that, where we don't have the Marvel or DC formula where they have to look a certain way,
Yeah.
they have to look like the industry, the company style.
Yeah. Our characters evolve. Like every issue, our
Yeah.
characters evolve, and it's kind of cool. So I think we're good.
Yeah, I think this is a interesting topic, and again, anyone out there who wants to give their input, please do. We
Yes.
want to hear from you.
For sure.